Straight ahead on 12 News, the doldrums of winter impact places that need help the most. Plus, why Golden Valley City Hall was closed for the afternoon. But first, packed, heated, and emotional. Words that best describe a Senate committee hearing on gun control. 12 News starts right now. It is round two for hearings on gun-related legislation at the state capitol. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alexandra Renslow.
And I'm Shannon Slatton. The Senate Judiciary Committee held its first of 3 hearings this afternoon. Renee Bonneau was there. She's live at the Capitol with more. Renee?
Shannon and Alex, when we arrived at the hearing room just after 10 o'clock this morning, there was already a line to get in outside the door. However, there was a slight change to the tone of this hearing as opposed to the House hearings held earlier this month. That's because there's one particularly contentious piece of legislation that senators say they will not touch, and that's a proposed ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. More than an hour before the Senate Judiciary hearing, a line of maroon shirts and yellow buttons snaked around room 15 at the state capitol. Members of the Minnesota Gun Owners Civil Rights Alliance and other gun rights advocates hoping for front row seats.
They're just trying to add one more thing that is not necessary.
Curtis Anderson was first in line. He hoped the large presence of gun legislation opponents would get his message across.
If you've made laws and they're not working, then adding more laws isn't going to be the answer to that. You need to fix the laws you have, enforce them, and then you won't need this.
Standing among this group in the minority was Joyce Anderson.
We have a right. We have a right to be free from gun violence.
She says she supports legislation aimed at keeping guns out of the wrong hands, but says state Senate proposals don't go far enough.
I think the Senate is actually copping out, not going for smaller clips and banning assault rifles, but the very least is to have universal background checks for everyone.
Senator Ron Latz, who heads the Senate Judiciary Committee, said banning weapons would best be dealt with on a federal level. Plus, he said, a majority of the state's gun crimes have nothing to do with assault-style rifles.
The real epidemic of gun violence is in the single shot, the 1 in 2 individuals that get killed by a handgun. Per time. And so that's where we really need to focus our efforts.
He said universal background checks and laws that keep guns away from parties such as the mentally ill and juvenile offenders will solve what he calls the real epidemic in Minnesota.
That's got 85% public support in Minnesota. It's got broad consensus among law enforcement, both the chiefs of public safety and the rank and file police officers. And that, I think, is achievable.
At least one of the bills up for discussion was heard without opposition today. That would keep guns away from domestic violent offenders and juvenile offenders, and it would punish people from giving guns to people that shouldn't have them, such as felons. Alex and Shannon, the general public will have a chance to weigh in this evening at 6 o'clock in another hearing. It's slated to last about 3 hours, but Senator Latz says he wouldn't be surprised if it stretched to 4. We're live at the Capitol. Renee Bonneau, 12 News.
All right, thank you, Renee. Recent gun violence episodes like the workplace shooting at Accent Signage in Minneapolis are prompting Golden Valley Police to prepare city workers for a worst-case scenario. The Golden Valley City Hall was closed to the public Thursday afternoon, so police could hold a public safety drill inside with city employees. Police Chief Stacy Carlson says the scenarios deal with how to prepare if there were an active shooter inside a city government building. The police chief says last fall's Accent Signage shooting shows that no place is immune from gun violence, and the more people are prepared, the better their chances are of survival.
A local lawmaker wants to make Minnesota a national player in solar energy, but Xcel Energy and Maple Grove-based Great River Energy say such a move would be too expensive and drive up rates. A bill sponsored by Senator Chris Eaton of Brooklyn Center would require the state's power companies to get 10% of their electricity from the sun by the year 2030. Eaton says her bill would create 2,000 new jobs in the solar power industry.
The Solar Energy Jobs Act is the next step we need to take to make Minnesota more energy independent and to promote growth in key sectors of our economy.
Backers of the bill say Minnesota has as much sun as Florida. They also say solar panels work better on cold, sunny days because they don't overheat. Meantime, Senator Eaton and Senator Terry Bonoff are part of a bipartisan group that is calling for a 5-year ban on recreational wolf hunting. Wolf hunting was introduced for the first time last year after the animal was removed from federal protection. According to the DNR, the state's wolf population is large enough to sustain a hunt. A DNR survey, however, showed that nearly 80% of more than 7,000 respondents were against it.
Governor Dayton has signed legislation that affects the 2012 tax returns you may be filling out right now. It means you can claim certain state deductions without filing an amended return later. The changes allow teachers to claim a deduction for out-of-pocket expenses. Homeowners who itemize can deduct the mortgage insurance premiums on their homes. And it extends the college tuition deduction for students. The Department of Revenue says 250,000 Minnesota taxpayers are affected by the changes. The State Department of Revenue has already updated the forms on its websites. Updates on tax software for private companies should be in place soon.
When a new fire chief is named for Crystal and New Hope, it looks like it could be a candidate from within the department. In a 4-3 decision, the West Metro Board opted to post the fire chief position internally versus publicly for right now. West Metro Board member and former Crystal Mayor Renee Bowman resigned from the board after that vote, calling the decision, quote, unethical. The fire department, which covers the cities of New Hope and Crystal, has been without a fire chief since Scott Crandall resigned last September. Captain Sarah Larson is currently serving as the acting interim chief. You could call it the calm after the storm.
But it's a calm people who operate food shelves don't need. One area food shelf supplier reports volunteering goes down drastically in the months following Christmas.
On Wednesday and Thursday mornings, we get donations of fresh tortillas that were produced last night.
They call it the Tortilla Project.
They are part of making sure that tortillas that are still edible don't get thrown away.
Regular volunteers at Second Harvest Heartland know 2 times a week
we get our 12.
They'll be sorting and packing tortillas.
Lay it flat, get all the air, as much air as we can get out, seal it.
Then the tortillas will be frozen and shipped to around 1,000 food shelves in Minnesota and western Wisconsin.
We need to get as much food packaged to get out.
Rebecca Salmonson,
and it's a good thing to give back,
has volunteered here about once a week
Thanks.
For the past 3 years.
When we have the bigger groups, we can get through a lot more and then get into our rice and cereal and stuff. Same thing.
She knows days like today, this small but devoted group will barely get the job done.
Sometimes when it's short, we barely just get through the tortillas.
Before the holidays, more than 100 people would be scheduled for a volunteer shift.
So we got in the habit of just rolling along, and since the holidays have been over, I think people just get caught up in other things, and we could really use some additional volunteer service to help us keep that packing process going.
Second Harvest Heartland encourages people to sign up online for 2 to 3 hour shifts from Tuesday to Saturday.
The more people there are, the more energy that gets cranked out and the more product we get processed.
So volunteers know that more hands at work here could mean fewer people hungry out there.
We want to make sure that food is actually getting to people who need it rather than being thrown away.
And last year alone, volunteers donated enough hours to fill 47 full-time positions. If you would like to volunteer, they welcome you there. Go to our website for more information. Coming up, what a Wayzata High School student did that impressed her teachers.
And later in sports, the Osseo girls basketball team is set for a key game Friday as they shoot towards a conference title.
But first, according to your AccuWeather forecast, it could be a rough Friday morning commute. We'll be right back.
Getting involved in volunteer work can be a challenging proposition, especially those with busy schedules.
Definitely, but today's standout student from Wayzata High School has made it a top priority, so much so that her teachers call her a role model. Delane Cleveland explains.
Y luego, 14.
Learning a foreign language
Tenga.
adds yet another element
Y el número 6.
to a student's resume
Muy bien.
to help them become well-rounded.
O sea,
Not that Prasanna Vankina needs much help with that.
I like Spanish a lot.
This Wayzata High School student is only a junior, but she's had a role in a long list of projects and activities.
I'm a member of NHS, the National Honor Society, and I'm part of Quiz Bowl. I do cancer research at the University of Minnesota. I am a really fortunate member of Club YES.
It's Prasanna's involvement in Club YES, or Youth Extending Service, that her teachers say showcases her character.
She's quite a role model for the rest of the students, and can show that with her volunteering efforts in the community and beyond.
Her community service outreach includes breast cancer walks, projects such as Adopt a Highway and Habitat for Humanity.
It gives you a sense of like belonging and connection.
And volunteer work with North Memorial Medical Center. And she does it all while carrying a 3.9 GPA.
Community service is really important to me, and I think that's something that I would continue for the rest of my life. And I try my best in everything I do, and I try as hard as I can to go above and beyond. Not because I'm supposed to, but just because I can.
It's something she truly enjoys. And her hard work will earn her the President's Volunteer Service Award.
In order to get the Presidential Award, it's a 100-hour minimum, and we probably had 100 kids turn in their awards for this year, but 253 is. She has excelled.
Prasanna has another year to make her mark on Wayzata. But first, she needs to make it through Spanish class. In Plymouth, Delane Cleveland, 12 News.
Prasanna is still undecided on a major, but she says she's considering history or something that would involve cancer research. She's also undecided on a college, but she's strongly considering Notre Dame. So it sounds like any college would probably be glad to have her.
Exactly.
Coming up, the latest dance craze that's popular both on land and underwater.
But first, speaking of underwater, the Maple Grove boys swimming and diving team looks to repeat as section champions. John Jacobson is in next.
Welcome back. John joins us now with sports. We're talking girls basketball.
Osseo girls team on a roll, and a big game for them coming up Friday night before section play. After a 12-point loss to Maple Grove January 4th, the Osseo girls basketball team sat with a 7-6 record, a winning record, but a long way from the expectations set by last year's state Class 4A runner-up. But the Orioles have since turned things around, winning 10 of their last 12 games. They're now 15-4 in the Northwest Suburban Conference. With just one regular season game left, the Orioles are one game behind Centennial in the conference standings. Friday night, they play the Cougars with a chance to tie for the league title.
It means a lot, and especially playing them again because we had to play them last year for the conference championship. I really like playing them because they always bring intensity, and they always have a good coaching staff, and they always have good players. Because I play AAU against some of the girls too, so it's really fun.
We see it as one step at a time. So before we even get to state, we got to win conference champs, get there, take from sections and go on. Our conference this year has been, you know, different than the years past, and it's actually made it more fun, you know, playing better teams. So.
Osseo beat Centennial by 20 points last month, but the Orioles expect a tough game on the road this time around against a very solid team.
We're expecting a battle every time we go down there. The last few years, it seems like it's kind of come down to Centennial and Osseo, and that's good. And you know, we like the challenge, and you know, we talked about it today before practice. The girls are, you know, the girls are ready. We're excited for the opportunity, and we know it's going to be a tough game.
Tip-off is at 7 o'clock Friday at Centennial. Section tournament play in girls basketball begins next week. It's section meet week for local boys swimming and diving teams. Maple Grove is aiming for a repeat championship in Section 8AA. The Crimson is getting some last workouts in before the 8AA meet Friday and Saturday at St. Cloud Tech High School. Maple Grove won the meet last season. Repeating as team champion is a goal, but qualifying a big group for state is just as important.
Well, we have a goal, a preseason goal of getting everyone qualified, well, one person qualified in each event. So, and of course, we want to win, but yeah, qualifying people to state is one of our huge goals. So,
I think if we swim the way that we are planning on it and dive, I think we should be able to get at least one person through in every event. I think we can get all three of our relays through.
Maple Grove once again won the Northwest Suburban Conference title, and their only dual meet losses were to Powers Edina and Eden Prairie. The guys say they've gotten better after a slow start this winter.
Day one, it was kind of a downer, I guess, because we weren't doing as well as we kind of should have been. But over the season, we started getting better, working harder, and we definitely made up for it.
Many of the teams in our area, including Osseo, Park Center, Wayzata, Armstrong, and Cooper, will compete in the Section 5 AA meet Thursday through Saturday in Minnetonka. Despite this week's cold weather, ice fishing for the season is starting to wind down, especially here in the metro area. But there are still fish out there to be caught. Here's Tackle Terry Tuma with this week's Channel 12 ice fishing tip.
A short time ago, we talked about moods of these fish on a separate tip, if you will. But let's carry that to the next step. Let's talk about strike zones. What is a strike zone? Strike zones are the distance that fish travel to your baits and your lures. And so often we think, well, I'm marking a fish right here on my Vexlar or even in the summertime, and we think that these fish are going to travel. If you got a tougher bite, and by the way, 95% of the fish that we are fishing, wintertime or summertime, are going to be neutral or negative fish. So in other words, if they're not aggressive fish, they are not going to travel a distance to your bait and your lures. That's why it's so very important for us to monitor our electronics to where these fish are at in that cone angle that's going to be displayed on your screen. Just to give you an idea, or for example, if you will, in the summertime, when you have a tough bite bass, it'll travel 1 foot to eat. And so often we hear about, well, taking in the summertime, taking and basically hitting a walleye on the head with your jig. That's a tough bite fish. We have to present those lures exactly in that strike zone. Just pay attention. Pre-plan your trips. Understand these moods. You are definitely going to increase your success. In fact, I'll guarantee that. We'll see you on the ice.
Thanks, Terry. And our last ice fishing tip of the season comes next Thursday, starting at 4.
All right, you heard it from Terry.
Yes.
He's going to guarantee
Yeah.
it. Thanks a lot, John. Still ahead, what has students shaking all over on YouTube?
We'll be right back.
And finally, what Stephen Colbert, the Norwegian Army, and tens of thousands of others have in common with Perpich students in Golden Valley.
Why, we're talking about the Harlem Shake, of course. Yep, Gangnam Style is so yesterday. Harlem Shake is the current song everyone wants to imitate. It's #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it's turned into the latest flash mob style dance craze. This video that Perpich students made has gained more than 4,000 views, and if you logged onto the Robbinsdale School District's page today, the whole page was shaking to the Harlem Shake.
Everybody puts their own little twist on it.
That's
all right.
right.
That's it. So
thing to do.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not going to do it today,
No.
but that's all the news we have for today, everyone.
Community Corner is coming up next.